Hey guys, welcome back, I'm Jay. In this episode, we're gonna look at the S3 versioning. You can enable S3 versioning to keep multiple versions of objects. You can preserve, retrieve and restore every version of objects stored in the S3 bucket. After you enable S3 versioning, every time you put an object or update it in a bucket, S3 generates a unique version ID for the object. A combination of key and version ID can uniquely identify an object in a bucket. Versioning is a great way to back up and recover objects from accidental deletion or overwriting. If you delete a versioning-enabled object, instead of removing it permanently, S3 inserts a delete marker, which becomes the current object version. If you overwrite a versioning-enabled object, it results in a new object version in the bucket. You can always restore the previous version. S3 versioning works with lifecycle management. You can create lifecycle rules to define storage class transitions for the current version and previous versions. For example, you can transition old object versions to S3 Glacier after they become non-current. S3 versioning also comes with MFA Delete to prevent the unexpected deletion. If you enable MFA Delete, whenever someone tries to delete an object, it will ask for the multi-factor authentication code. You can enable MFA Delete when you enable object versioning on a bucket. You can only use CLI or API to set up MFA Delete. Only root account user can enable MFA Delete. Each version has its own object owner. An AWS account that creates the object version is the owner of the version. You can set different permissions for different versions of the same object. It's free to use S3 versioning. However, because each object version consumes storage space, versioning can incur extra storage costs. An S3 bucket can be in one of three versioning states: unversioned by default, versioning enabled, or versioning suspended. The versioning state applies to all of the objects in the bucket. The first time you enable versioning, objects are thereafter always versioned and given a unique version ID. Once you enable versioning on a bucket, it can never return to the unversioned state. You can only suspend the versioning. When you retrieve an object with multiple versions, you can retrieve the current versions or any previous versions. A simple get object request always retrieves the current version of an object. In this example, you will get the current version of cat.gif object, with a version ID 3. To retrieve a specific version, you have to specify its version ID. A getObject version ID request retrieves the specified version of the object. For instance, if you specify version 1 in the get request, you will get the version 1 of the object. When versioning is enabled, a simple delete cannot permanently remove an object. Instead, S3 inserts a delete marker in the bucket, and the delete marker becomes the current version of the object with a new ID. You can think the delete marker as a special empty object. When you try to get an object whose current version is a delete marker, S3 behaves as the object has been deleted and returns a 404 resource not found error. In this example, before simple delete, the current version is version 2. After simple delete, S3 inserts a version 3 with a delete marker, which becomes the new current version. To permanently remove a versioned object, you must use delete object version ID. For instance, you can remove version 2 permanently by specifying version 2 in the delete request. You can remove the delete marker and restore the temporarily deleted object. To remove a delete marker, you must specify the version ID. When you use a simple delete to remove a delete marker, S3 does not remove the marker. But instead, it inserts another delete marker. In a versioning-enabled bucket, this new delete marker would have a unique version ID. So it's possible to have multiple delete markers of the same object in one bucket. For instance, you've removed the delete marker with a simple delete request, it inserts another version of the delete marker. Now the original object has two delete markers. To permanently remove a delete marker, you must include its version ID in a delete request. Only the owner of a bucket can permanently remove a delete marker. After removing the delete marker, a simple get request will now retrieve the current version of the object, which is version 1 in this case. In a versioning-enabled bucket, all object versions are preserved. You can restore any earlier version by copying a specific version of the object into the same bucket. In this example, the current version is version 2. After you copy version 1 into the same bucket, it becomes version 3. Now version 3 is the current version. The original object has both version 1 and its copy. In this episode, we've learned that you can store multiple versions of objects using S3 versioning. S3 versioning is a great way to back up and recover objects from deletion or overwriting. An S3 bucket can be in one of three versioning states: unversioned by default, versioning enabled, or versioning suspended. The versioning state applies to all of the objects in the bucket. You can use a simple getObject request to retrieve the current version of the object. Use getObject version ID to retrieve a specific version. A simple delete request only inserts a delete marker. Use delete version ID to permanently delete an object. You can restore a previous version by copying it into the same bucket. Okay, that's all for S3 versioning. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode.
Hope you've enjoyed watching this episode. If you liked the video, please help us and hit the like button. If you want to watch more tutorials, please subscribe to the Cloudemy TV channel. Make sure to turn on the notification and stay tuned. At Cloudemy, we're passionate about cloud and AI technology. Please share your feedback and thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to watch. Happy watching and happy learning.